Well, several nonprofits just launched a new housing community in downtown Santa Barbara.
And News Channel report.
An 81-year-old Air Force veteran named Leo watched his house burn down and, for a while, had nowhere to go but a tent, with his dog beside him. That's usually where a story like this ends, another name added to a number nobody really sits with. But Leo's story didn't end there, because on a quiet street in South Kansas City, Missouri, someone had already built him a way back. A small red house was waiting, fully furnished, with a locking door and a stocked refrigerator. And today, Leo is a familiar face at that same village's weekly coffee hour, helping other veterans find their way to the same door he walked through. His house is one of 10 inventions changing homeless people's lives across America right now. And to understand how a nation this size manages to build somebody a home in under an hour, you have to start with the machines and the ideas behind them. From a house that gets printed by a giant robotic arm in under a day, to a shelter that snaps together like a piece of furniture in under an hour, engineers and nonprofits across America are quietly rewriting what it means to give someone a place to live. These aren't concept sketches sitting in a design magazine. These are real homes, sitting on real streets, with real people sleeping safely inside them tonight. From Austin, Texas to Everett, Washington, a new wave of tiny home inventions is proving that ending homelessness might not require decades and billions of dollars. It might just require better ideas. Here are 10 of those inventions, and the story of the man they brought back inside. Number 1. The shelter that goes up in under an hour. In a warehouse in Everett, Washington, workers are building something that looks almost too simple to matter. A small house made of insulated composite panels, packed flat, ready to be trucked anywhere in the country. The company is called Pallet, and what makes it remarkable isn't just the design, it's the speed. A single 64-square-foot unit can be assembled by 2 people in under an hour. No crane, no concrete crew, no months of permitting delays. Each shelter has its own locking door, its own window, and enough room for a bed, a heater, and a place to keep your belongings safe. That detail, a door that actually locks, sounds small until you talk to someone who has spent years sleeping in a tent, listening for footsteps at 3 in the morning. Pallet's founders built the company after years running a construction crew that hired people coming out of homelessness and addiction. Those same workers told them what was missing from every shelter they'd ever stayed in: privacy, security, a place for a pet. So today, more than half of Pallet's own employees have lived experience with homelessness themselves, building the exact shelters that once could have housed them. Since 2016, Pallet has built more than 4,000 of these units across over 100 communities in 16 states, from Portland tent camps to a reservation in Washington state battling freezing winter nights. But speed alone doesn't solve homelessness. What comes next matters even more. Number 2. Homes made from recycled ocean plastic. Picture a house that started life as a solution to flooding along the Amazon River and ended up solving a very different kind of crisis in Southern California. That's the story of LifeArc, a housing system built from rotationally molded plastic, the same manufacturing process used to make industrial water tanks. The pieces click together like oversized building blocks, and because the material is completely non-combustible and doesn't rot, a LifeArc home can last decades with almost no maintenance. Its architect originally designed the system to float on rivers for communities facing seasonal flooding, but when he saw the scale of unsheltered homelessness back home in Los Angeles, he realized the same technology could be anchored on land instead. The units can be fitted with solar panels on the roof and a rainwater harvesting system capable of storing over 30,000 liters per structure, meaning residents can have power and water even in a parking lot with no utility hookups. In 2022, the first LifeArc permanent supportive housing project opened its doors in El Monte, California, giving formerly homeless and medically vulnerable residents a home built almost entirely from what most people would throw away. It's a strange kind of poetry. Plastic waste, one of the world's biggest pollution problems, being reshaped into one of the world's most urgently needed products, a roof that doesn't leak. And in Austin, Texas, an even stranger material is doing the same job, a thick paste that gets printed like ink on a page. Number 3. The house that gets printed like a document. In Austin, Texas, there's a machine that looks like it belongs on a spaceship, 11 feet tall, extruding a thick concrete-like paste layer by layer, printing the walls of a house the way an office printer prints a page. The company is called Icon, and the material is a proprietary mix they call lavacrete. What once took a construction crew weeks now takes roughly 24 hours of print time. Each 400-square-foot home includes a full bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and living room, along with a wide porch designed for exactly the kind of quiet, unhurried moment that people who've lived on the street rarely get. These homes sit inside Community First Village, a development run by the nonprofit Mobile Loaves and Fishes, and they were never meant to be a novelty. Icon's co-founder has said plainly that vulnerable populations are almost never the first to get access to breakthrough technology. But in this case, formerly homeless residents in Austin became some of the first people in the country to ever live inside a fully three-dimensional printed home. The project has grown fast. What started as 6 homes has expanded into plans for nearly 1,400 printed units, enough to eventually house around 1,800 people who used to sleep outside. Some of these homes are built with reduced plumbing to keep construction costs and monthly rent low, so residents walk a short distance to shared bathrooms and kitchens instead, a trade-off that sounds small on paper but keeps a home affordable for someone living on almost nothing. And because the printer can run around the clock without stopping for breaks, the company behind it argues this is finally a building method fast enough to keep pace with a housing shortage that traditional construction has never been able to catch up to. But a printed wall was never the whole plan. The village built around it was just as deliberate. Number 4. A village built like an actual neighborhood, not a shelter. Here's something Community First Village understood early that a lot of housing programs miss. A house alone doesn't fix loneliness. So instead of just rows of tiny homes, the 51-acre property includes an outdoor movie theater, an art house where residents sell their own paintings and jewelry, a woodworking shop, a blacksmith studio, and a working farm and garden where neighbors grow food together. Some residents live in the Icon printed homes, others in traditional tiny houses, and some choose RVs. But every single person gets access to on-site medical care, addiction recovery support, and a case manager who treats them like a neighbor first and a client second. The organization behind it, Mobile Loaves and Fishes, has been serving Austin's homeless community for more than 26 years, and their founder put it simply: move homeless people into a real neighborhood, and you're not just housing them, you're raising the surrounding property values right alongside their quality of life. It's a model built on a belief that's easy to say and hard to execute, that the core of homelessness usually isn't a housing problem alone. It's often a profound and catastrophic loss of family, and the fix has to include community, not just 4 walls. Building a 51-acre village takes years and land nobody else wants to buy. One California nonprofit found a way to skip both of those problems entirely. Number 5. Housing that borrows land instead of buying it. A California nonprofit called Dignity Moves found a clever workaround for one of the biggest obstacles in solving homelessness fast: the cost and scarcity of land. Instead of purchasing property, they identify vacant parking lots, oddly shaped parcels, and land waiting on future development, and they borrow it for a few years using emergency building codes that cut through the usual red tape. Prefabricated rooms, each with its own bed, desk, heating, and a door that locks, get installed on site using a forklift instead of a foundation crew. When the land is eventually needed again, the entire community can be relocated to a new site instead of demolished. Each private room costs around $30,000 to build, a fraction of what permanent supportive housing typically costs, and takes years less time to deliver. Their first community opened in San Francisco, then expanded to Santa Barbara, Alameda, San Jose, and beyond. In San Jose alone, the approach helped drive more than a 10% drop in unsheltered homelessness in a single year. The nonprofit's founder likes to say that streets shouldn't be the waiting room for permanent housing, and this model is her answer to that problem. Fast, dignified, and honest about the fact that not every solution has to be forever to be valuable. Each community also includes shared dining spaces, a computer lab so residents can search for jobs and reconnect with lost documents like a birth certificate or a social security card, and even pet relief areas. Because for a lot of people sleeping on the street, the fear of being separated from a dog or a cat is one of the biggest reasons they refuse to go into a shelter in the first place. Removing that one barrier alone has convinced people to come inside who had turned down every other offer of help for years. If you're finding these inventions as remarkable as I am, go ahead and hit subscribe, because we cover stories like this every week, real solutions being built right now for people who need them most. Now let's get back to Leo, and the story that might be the most important one on this list. Number 6. The tiny house village built exclusively for veterans. In South Kansas City, Missouri, there's a quiet street lined with small, brightly painted houses, deep blue, dark maroon, mustard yellow, each with an American flag out front. This is VCP Village, built by the Veterans Community Project, and every single resident took the same oath at some point in their life, to defend the country that later couldn't find them a place to sleep. The nonprofit was founded in 2016 by a group of combat veterans who were frustrated watching their fellow service members end up on the street with almost no local support built for them specifically. So they built 49 tiny homes themselves, ranging from 240 to 320 square feet, each one fully furnished, down to new bedding and a stocked refrigerator, free of charge. Veterans arrive with little more than the pain and uncertainty of life outside, and they leave with everything they need to start over, including the furniture, which residents get to keep when they transition out. The property purchased for the original village was land in Kansas City that nobody else wanted. 5 acres bought for just $500, transformed into a community worth over $3 million in built value through volunteer labor and donations. Every resident gets a dedicated case manager who helps with VA benefits navigation, mental health referrals, job placement, and financial counseling, using a framework the organization calls the HOMES Index to build an individual path forward for every single veteran who walks through the door. The results speak for themselves. Roughly 85% of veterans who move through VCP Village successfully transition into permanent housing, staying in the village an average of about 14 months while they rebuild. This is where Leo's story from the start of this video comes back in. After his house burned down, he and his dog needed somewhere safe immediately, and a tiny red home at VCP Village gave them exactly that. Today, he's the neighbor who shows up early to the weekly coffee hour, connecting other veterans to the same resources that saved him. The model has already spread to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with more villages built and planned in St. Louis, Longmont, and cities across the country, all working toward the same goal: serving those who served us, no matter how their military discharge paperwork reads. Kansas City proved veterans could live in homes built for them. The next question was, who should be building those homes in the first place? Number 7. Veterans building tiny homes for other veterans. There's a nonprofit called Operation Tiny Home, running a program that flips the usual charity model on its head. Instead of outside contractors building homes for homeless veterans, veterans build the homes themselves, learning carpentry, wiring, and construction skills while constructing a tiny house for a fellow veteran in need. It's called a pay-it-forward model, and the logic behind it runs deeper than just saving on labor costs. Purpose and structure are two things military life provides in abundance, and two things that often vanish the moment someone leaves the service. Rebuilding those things through hands-on work, alongside other veterans who understand exactly what that transition feels like, does something a check or a shelter bed alone never could. Research on housing first approaches, the idea that stable housing should come before requiring sobriety or employment as a condition of shelter, has consistently shown better outcomes across the board, improved physical and mental health, and far less reliance on emergency rooms, hospitals, and jails down the line. Programs like this one prove that the building itself can become part of the healing. None of that healing matters much, though, if the walls someone builds can't actually be lived in comfortably once the cameras and volunteers go home. Number 8. The quiet technology making these shelters actually livable. A lot of the innovation in this space isn't in the walls, it's in what's hidden behind them. Villages built with heavily insulated composite panels ran into an unexpected problem early on. The walls were so effective at blocking outside signals that residents couldn't get reliable internet or cell service inside their own homes. So newer sites have started installing mesh Wi-Fi networks with specialized antennas built specifically to punch through that insulation, giving residents digital access for job applications, telehealth appointments, and staying in touch with family. Other shelters are built to be wiped down and disinfected quickly, resistant to bedbugs and mildew, addressing a health and dignity issue that traditional group shelters have struggled with for decades. And increasingly, solar panels and rainwater systems are showing up standard rather than as a luxury add-on, cutting utility costs down to nearly nothing for both residents and the nonprofits running these programs. None of this makes headlines the way a three-dimensional printed house does, but ask anyone who has actually lived in one of these units, and they'll tell you the Wi-Fi signal and the working shower matter just as much as the walls around them. Some villages have even added climate-controlled units that can switch between heating and cooling depending on the region, since a shelter built for a mild coastal city often fails completely the first time it faces a hard freeze somewhere further inland. It's a reminder that dignity isn't just about privacy. It's also about not shivering through a January night or overheating through a July afternoon inside the very place that's supposed to be your refuge from both. Not every solution on this list started as a housing idea at all. One of the most effective ones started as cargo. Number 9. Steel shipping containers reborn as apartments. Long before any of these newer technologies existed, cities were already experimenting with an older idea, taking the same steel shipping containers used to move cargo across oceans and converting them into small, code-compliant apartments. Stripped down, insulated, fitted with plumbing and electrical, and stacked 2 or 3 high, a single container can become a private studio unit, far faster and cheaper than pouring a traditional foundation and framing a house from scratch. Because the shell already exists, the container skips months of the construction timeline that a standard building would require. Cities facing both a housing shortage and a shortage of buildable land have leaned on this approach specifically because it allows them to build up instead of out, adding real housing density on small urban lots that would never fit a traditional apartment complex. It's not glamorous, and it doesn't get the same viral attention online as a robotic printer building a house in a day. But a steel box that once carried furniture across the Pacific Ocean, now carrying someone's bed, their books, and their sense of safety, might be one of the most quietly effective inventions on this entire list. Some cities have gone even further, stacking containers around a shared central courtyard, so residents still get a sense of community and passing conversation, rather than a row of isolated boxes with nothing connecting them. It turns out the same principle that makes Community First Village work applies here too, at a much smaller scale. People don't just need 4 walls. They need somewhere to nod hello to a neighbor on the way to the mailbox. And what's happening in these 9 places individually is starting to add up to something much bigger nationally. Number 10. A model spreading faster than anyone expected. Maybe the most important invention here isn't a single structure at all. It's the idea that these models can be copied, city after city, faster than most people assumed possible. What started as one tiny house village in Kansas City has already expanded into Sioux Falls, St. Louis, and communities working toward the same goal in 8 or more cities nationwide. Pallet shelters have gone from a single Everett warehouse to over 100 communities across 16 states, and now even beyond the United States entirely. Dignity Moves has spread its relocatable model across California, with plans to expand into other states struggling with the exact same challenges. Housing advocates who've spent decades in this field are calling it one of the biggest shifts in emergency shelter policy in a generation. A shift away from waiting years for permanent housing to get built, and toward giving someone dignity, privacy, and a locked door today, while the bigger, slower solutions catch up. None of these 10 inventions claim to solve homelessness on their own, but together, they represent something this country hasn't had in a long time when it comes to this issue: genuine, working, replicable momentum. And maybe just as important, they represent a change in tone. Cities that used to treat unsheltered homelessness as something to hide or push out of sight into a park a few blocks over are increasingly treating it as something to actually solve, with real engineering, real budgets, and real accountability for whether people end up in permanent homes afterward or not. So that's 10 tiny home inventions quietly reshaping how America takes care of its most vulnerable neighbors, from robotic concrete printers in Austin to recycled plastic homes born out of a flooding crisis on the Amazon, to a street full of painted tiny houses in Kansas City. The same street where an 81-year-old veteran named Leo got his dog, his refrigerator, and his front door back. What ties every single one of these projects together isn't the material or the technology. It's the belief that a door that locks and a place that's truly yours can be the first real step out of homelessness, not the last reward after years of proving you deserve it. Housing first, dignity first, community first. Every single program on this list, in one way or another, built itself around that same simple idea, and it's working. If a story like Leo's means something to you, especially if you're a veteran or you're close to someone who's struggling right now, I put together a free resource guide that goes deeper than we can here. Real organizations, how to reach them, and what actually helps. It's called the Veterans Blueprint, and the link to download it is right below this video. Take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next one.